The conference room in the Smithsonian Institution fell silent as Dr. Elena Rodriguez slammed the authenticated analysis report onto the polished mahogany table. "That strange metal box your simple farmer found while plowing? It's the lost Revolutionary War Treasury document container we've been searching for. It's worth over $40 million and contains correspondence that could rewrite American history." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Sarah Michelle Chen wiped the sweat from her weathered hands. As she turned off the rusty tractor engine, the morning sun cast long shadows across the fertile fields of Green Valley, Missouri, where generations of her family had worked the soil. At 35, Sarah carried herself with the quiet determination of someone who had learned to find strength in simplicity. Her calloused palms and sun-kissed cheeks told the story of a woman who had never shied away from honest work. Even when life had offered her easier paths, the 150-acre Chen family farm had been passed down through 3 generations, each adding their own chapter to its legacy. Sarah's grandmother, Li Wei Chen, had arrived from Taiwan in 1952 with nothing but hope and an unwavering belief in the American dream. Through decades of dawn-to-dusk labor, she had transformed barren land into productive farmland. Sarah's mother, Jennifer Chen, had modernized the operation while maintaining the family's commitment to sustainable farming practices. Now it was Sarah's turn to carry the torch, though the weight of tradition sometimes felt heavier than the bags of seed she hauled each spring. She had earned a degree in agricultural engineering from the University of Missouri, but her heart had always belonged to the earth. While classmates had moved to cities for corporate careers, Sarah had returned home to implement innovative techniques that honored both progress and heritage. The farm specialized in organic vegetables and heirloom wheat varieties, supplying local restaurants and farmers markets throughout the state. Sarah's commitment to environmental stewardship had earned recognition from agricultural associations, though financial success remained elusive. Rising costs, unpredictable weather, and competition from industrial farms had made every growing season a battle for survival. This particular morning found Sarah preparing the north field for spring planting. The area had remained fallow for 2 years after a devastating hailstorm had destroyed the previous crop. She had finally saved enough to invest in the equipment needed to restore the field's drainage system and soil composition. As the tractor hummed through its morning ritual, Sarah's mind wandered to the conversation she'd had with her banker the previous week. The loan officer had been frank about the farm's financial situation. Without significant improvement in revenue, the bank would be forced to recommend foreclosure proceedings. The words had hit Sarah like a physical blow, threatening not just her livelihood but her family's entire legacy. The tractor lurched suddenly as the plow caught on something substantial buried in the soil. Sarah cursed under her breath, assuming she'd hit another remnant of the old barn foundation that had been demolished decades earlier. Such obstacles were common on old farmland, requiring patience and careful maneuvering to remove without damaging equipment. She climbed down from the tractor, her worn boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. The morning dew had created perfect plowing conditions, making the sudden obstruction all the more frustrating. Sarah grabbed a hand spade from the tractor's toolbox and knelt beside the disturbed soil where the plow had stopped. What she uncovered defied her expectations entirely. Partially revealed in the rich brown earth was the corner of what appeared to be a metal box. Unlike anything she had ever seen on the property, the visible portion showed intricate engravings and what looked like an official seal of some kind. The metal itself appeared to be brass or bronze, tarnished but remarkably well preserved despite its obvious age. Sarah's heart began racing as she carefully brushed away more soil with her hands. The box was larger than she had initially thought, roughly the size of a briefcase, but significantly heavier. As more details emerged, she realized this was no ordinary farm debris. The craftsmanship was exquisite, with ornate designs that spoke of historical significance. After 20 minutes of careful excavation, Sarah successfully freed the box from its earthen prison. It was indeed metal, with dimensions of approximately 18 inches by 12 inches by 6 inches deep. The weight was substantial, suggesting it wasn't hollow. Most intriguingly, there appeared to be a sophisticated locking mechanism on the front, though corrosion had made it impossible to determine if it could still function. A chill ran through Sarah as she examined the partially visible seal more closely. Though worn by time and soil, she could make out what appeared to be colonial-era imagery, an eagle, stars, and script text that was difficult to decipher in the morning light. Her knowledge of American history was extensive, a passion inherited from her mother, who had been a high school history teacher before focusing full-time on the farm. The implications began to dawn on her. This box had been buried on Chen family property for an unknown length of time. Its craftsmanship and apparent age suggested it predated her family's ownership by centuries. But how had such an artifact come to rest in an unremarkable field in rural Missouri? Sarah carefully wrapped the box in an old blanket she kept in the tractor for protecting sensitive equipment. Her hands trembled slightly as she secured it, overwhelmed by the magnitude of her discovery. The morning that had begun with routine farm work had suddenly transformed into something extraordinary. She drove the tractor back to the farmhouse, the metal box secured safely beside her. The vehicle seemed to move at an impossibly slow pace as her mind raced with possibilities. Should she contact authorities immediately? Which authorities? What if this discovery was nothing more than an elaborate hoax left by pranksters? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe. To our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The Chen family farmhouse was a modest two-story structure built in 1954. Its white walls and red roof, a classic representation of Midwest agricultural architecture. Sarah parked the tractor in the barn and carried the wrapped box into the house, placing it carefully on the kitchen table where 3 generations of Chen women had planned harvests, balanced budgets, and shared family wisdom. Sarah made a cup of coffee with hands that still trembled from excitement and uncertainty. The box sat before her, its presence somehow transforming the familiar kitchen into foreign territory. She picked up her phone several times, unsure who to call. Her mother lived in Seattle, having moved there after her retirement to be closer to Sarah's older brother. Her father had passed away 5 years earlier, leaving Sarah as the sole caretaker of the family legacy. Finally, Sarah decided to call Dr. James Morrison, a professor of American history at the nearby University of Missouri, who occasionally purchased heirloom vegetables from the farm. Dr. Morrison had always struck her as approachable and knowledgeable, and she trusted him to provide guidance without sensationalizing her discovery. The phone rang twice before Dr. Morrison answered with his characteristic enthusiasm. "Sarah, how are the spring preparations coming along? Please tell me you're planning to grow those amazing purple carrots again this year." "Dr. Morrison, I need your advice," Sarah said, her voice betraying her nervous excitement. "I've discovered something while plowing, and I have no idea what to do about it." She described the metal box in detail, including her observations about the craftsmanship and potential colonial-era imagery. Dr. Morrison listened without interruption, his excitement building with each detail. "Sarah, you need to stop everything you're doing right now," he said urgently. "Don't touch the box again with your bare hands. Don't attempt to open it. I'm driving out to your farm immediately. This could be extraordinary." After ending the call, Sarah stared at the box with renewed awe and trepidation. Dr. Morrison's reaction had confirmed her suspicion that this was no ordinary discovery. She spent the waiting time researching colonial-era artifacts online, looking for anything that might resemble her find. Dr. Morrison arrived within an hour, bringing with him Dr. Amanda Foster, a colleague who specialized in artifact preservation. The two professors examined the box with professional equipment they had hastily gathered from their lab. Their excitement was palpable as they documented every detail with photography and careful notes. The craftsmanship is consistent with mid to late 18th century American metalwork, Dr. Foster announced after her initial examination. The seal appears to be governmental or semi-official in nature, though I can't identify it specifically without further research. Dr. Morrison carefully examined the engravings with a magnifying glass. Sarah, these markings suggest this box was created for storing important documents. See these ventilation holes that appear to be sealed? That's a common feature of document storage containers from that era, designed to prevent moisture damage while keeping the contents secure. The professors spent 2 hours documenting the box before carefully transporting it to their laboratory for more detailed analysis. They promised to keep Sarah informed of all developments and assured her that proper legal protocols would be followed regarding ownership and any potential historical significance. That evening, Sarah sat on her porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. The events of the day felt surreal, like something that happened to other people in news stories or documentaries. Yet here she was, potentially, in possession of an artifact that could change everything. Her phone rang as the first stars appeared. Dr. Morrison's voice was barely contained with excitement. "Sarah, you need to sit down for this. We've made some preliminary identifications of the seal and engravings. We believe you may have found a container that was part of the Continental Congress's security protocols during the Revolutionary War." Sarah's legs gave out as she sank into her porch chair. "Are you saying this box is from the Revolutionary War?" "It's too early to be certain, but the preliminary evidence is overwhelming. The seal matches designs we've seen in archives from 1776 to 1783. More importantly, we've confirmed the presence of documents inside using non-invasive scanning technology. Sarah, these documents appear to be in remarkable condition." The professor continued, his academic excitement barely professional. "I've already contacted Dr. Elena Rodriguez at the Smithsonian Institution. She's flying out tomorrow morning. Sarah, if our initial assessments are correct, you may have discovered one of the most significant Revolutionary War artifacts in decades." Sarah ended the call in a daze, staring out at the fields that suddenly seemed different, charged with historical significance. The land her family had farmed for generations had been keeping a secret far older and more valuable than anyone could have imagined. As she prepared for bed that night, Sarah's mind raced with questions. How had a Revolutionary War artifact ended up buried on her family's Missouri farm? Who had put it there and when? What documents could be so important that they required such an elaborate protective container? The financial implications hadn't escaped her notice either. Dr. Morrison had mentioned that significant historical artifacts could be worth millions of dollars. The timing seemed almost miraculous, given her dire financial situation. Yet Sarah found herself less concerned about money than about the potential historical significance of her discovery. She dreamed that night of colonial soldiers and founding fathers, of important documents that shaped the nation, of her ancestors who had unknowingly farmed above a piece of American history for decades. When she woke the next morning, the events of the previous day might have seemed like a dream, if not for the empty space on her kitchen table where the metal box had sat. Dr. Rodriguez arrived at the farm shortly after sunrise, accompanied by a team of specialists from the Smithsonian Institution. Their equipment-filled vehicles looked out of place among the rural surroundings, but their purpose was deadly serious. This was no longer just about a curious discovery. It had become a potential matter of national historical significance. The Smithsonian team had already established a temporary laboratory in Dr. Morrison's university facility. They invited Sarah to observe as they began the delicate process of opening the box, using techniques that would preserve both the container and its contents. As the lock yielded to expert manipulation after 2.5 centuries, Sarah held her breath. The lid opened with a slight creak, revealing a treasure beyond imagination. Nestled within worn, silk-lined compartments were documents written in the unmistakable hand of Revolutionary War-era scribes. Dr. Rodriguez's team worked with methodical precision, photographing and cataloging each document before removing it for closer examination. As the hours passed, their excitement became infectious. These weren't just any colonial documents. They appeared to be correspondence between high-ranking members of the Continental Congress and field commanders during critical moments of the war. One document in particular caught their attention. It was a letter bearing what appeared to be George Washington's signature, discussing troop movements and strategic plans for the winter of 1778. If authentic, it would represent an unprecedented window into the military decisions that helped win American independence. But the most shocking discovery came last. In a waterproof compartment at the bottom of the box lay a sealed document with intact wax seals. The writing on the exterior identified it as correspondence between Benjamin Franklin and an unnamed colonial ally, dated 1781. Dr. Rodriguez carefully broke the ancient seals, her hands trembling with the weight of history. As she unfolded the document, her face went pale. The room fell silent as she read, her expression shifting from excitement to absolute astonishment. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced in a voice barely above a whisper, "I believe we're looking at a previously unknown diplomatic correspondence that may contain information about secret negotiations that influenced the outcome of the Revolutionary War." The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a valuable historical artifact, it was a piece of American history that could rewrite textbooks and reshape understanding of the nation's founding. As Sarah stood among the experts, surrounded by documents that had shaped the birth of her country, she realized that her life had been forever changed by a tractor catching on something buried in the earth. The simple woman farmer who had started her day worrying about debt had become the custodian of priceless American heritage. The morning sun streamed through the laboratory windows, illuminating the ancient documents that would soon capture the attention of historians, collectors, and the American public. Sarah's discovery would not only save her farm, but potentially enrich the nation's understanding of its own remarkable beginning. The weeks following the discovery transformed Sarah's modest farmhouse into an unlikely hub of historical investigation. Word of the Revolutionary War artifacts had spread beyond academic circles, drawing attention from federal agencies, international museums, and a swarm of media representatives who had descended upon Green Valley like a Missouri summer thunderstorm. Dr. Rodriguez had taken up temporary residence in the local inn, leading a team of 15 specialists who worked around the clock to authenticate and preserve the documents. Every morning, Sarah would wake to find her driveway filled with official vehicles bearing federal license plates. The FBI had assigned Agent Marcus Thompson to coordinate security for what they now classified as a matter of national significance. The transformation wasn't just external. Inside Sarah's home, a makeshift command center had emerged in what used to be her father's study. Multiple computer screens displayed high-resolution scans of the documents, while secure communication lines connected her humble farmhouse to the highest levels of government. The Secretary of Cultural Affairs had personally called to express the nation's gratitude for Sarah's cooperation in preserving American heritage. Yet despite the circus of activity surrounding her discovery, Sarah maintained her daily farming routine with stubborn determination. Each morning, she would tend to her greenhouse while federal agents established their security perimeter. She found peace in the simple acts of watering seedlings and checking soil moisture levels, grounding herself in the familiar rhythms that had sustained her family for generations. Dr. Elena Rodriguez emerged from the makeshift laboratory, her face glowing with barely contained excitement. "Sarah, we need to talk. The preliminary authentication results are beyond anything we could have imagined." They walked to the porch, where Sarah had first processed the magnitude of her discovery. The same wooden rocking chair where she'd received that first overwhelming phone call now seemed positioned at the center of a historical earthquake. "The Franklin correspondence is authentic," Dr. Rodriguez announced. "Carbon dating confirms the paper originates from the 1780s, and our handwriting analysts have verified it against known samples of Franklin's writing." But Sarah, that's not the extraordinary part. She pulled out her tablet, showing Sarah high-resolution images of the documents. The sealed correspondence contains detailed plans for a secret alliance that was never documented in any known historical record. It appears that Franklin was negotiating with Spanish representatives to provide additional support beyond the official Franco-American alliance. Sarah studied the intricate script, amazed that words written nearly 2.5 centuries ago could still hold such power. What would this mean for how we understand the Revolutionary War? "Everything," Dr. Rodriguez replied simply. "These documents suggest that the American victory wasn't as tenuous as we've always believed. There was a third alliance. Spain was prepared to provide naval support that could have ended the war months earlier. For reasons we're still investigating, these negotiations were never completed." The implications were staggering. Dr. Rodriguez continued, explaining how the discovery would revolutionize Revolutionary War scholarship. Universities were already competing to house the documents permanently, while international museums had made increasingly elaborate offers for exhibition rights. But it was Agent Thompson who delivered the news that would change Sarah's perspective entirely. He appeared on the porch with an official-looking folder, his expression serious but not ominous. "Ms. Chen, I have notification from the Treasury Department," he began formally. "The government's official reward program for historical artifacts has evaluated your discovery. Based on the unprecedented historical and cultural value of the items you found, you're entitled to a reward of $45 million. Sarah felt the world tilt slightly. The number was incomprehensible, especially for someone who had been counting pennies to save her family farm just weeks earlier. She gripped the porch railing, her mind struggling to process the magnitude of what Agent Thompson had just announced. $45 million? She repeated slowly. "The largest reward ever given under the program," Agent Thompson confirmed. "The government recognizes that you could have sold these artifacts privately for potentially more money. Your decision to work with federal authorities and ensure the documents remain in American hands demonstrates remarkable patriotism." Dr. Rodriguez added, "Sarah, you understand what this means. You're not just financially secure now. You could transform this entire region. You could fund agricultural research, establish educational programs, create opportunities for other farmers facing similar struggles." Over the following days, Sarah found herself in a position she'd never imagined. Financial advisors arrived from Kansas City and St. Louis, offering to help her manage her newfound wealth. Real estate developers called with proposals for luxury developments. Investment firms presented elaborate portfolios designed for ultra-high net worth individuals. But Sarah noticed something troubling. The more people focused on the money, the less attention they paid to what the discovery truly meant. The documents weren't just valuable commodities, they were pieces of American heritage that belonged to everyone. This realization crystallized during a video conference with the Smithsonian Board of Directors. They were presenting options for permanently housing the artifacts, each proposal more elaborate than the last. Dr. Rodriguez advocated for a dedicated Franklin Washington gallery that would showcase the documents alongside interactive exhibits. About early American diplomacy, Dr. Rodriguez, Sarah interrupted politely, what about keeping some of the artifacts here? In Missouri, where they were found? The conference room fell silent. Board members exchanged glances that suggested they hadn't considered this possibility. The security requirements alone would be prohibitive, one member objected. These documents require museum-quality environmental controls, advanced security systems, and expert curatorial care. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. What if we created something new? A partnership between the Smithsonian and a new regional museum focused on American agricultural heritage and Revolutionary War history. Dr. Rodriguez's eyes lit up with understanding. You're proposing a satellite facility. The Smithsonian would maintain primary responsibility for conservation and research, but the public could access the artifacts closer to where they were discovered. Over subsequent weeks, Sarah worked with teams of architects, historians, and museum designers to develop an unprecedented plan. The Chen Family Foundation, established with a portion of the reward money, would donate land for the Museum of American Agricultural Heritage. The facility would showcase the Revolutionary War artifacts while celebrating the contributions of immigrant families like the Chens to American agriculture. But the most innovative aspect of Sarah's plan emerged during discussions with Dr. Morrison about educational programming. Instead of creating a traditional static museum, Sarah envisioned an active learning center where students could engage with history through hands-on agricultural experiences. Imagine, she explained to a gathering of educators and historians, students learning about Revolutionary War economics by understanding the agricultural systems that fed the Continental Army. They could grow heritage crops, learn traditional farming techniques, and understand how food security influenced military strategy. The proposal captivated educators throughout the region. Within weeks, school districts began signing up for pilot programs. Agricultural colleges expressed interest in establishing satellite programs. Even international educators reached out, intrigued by the model of experiential historical learning. Sarah's vision extended beyond education. She established partnerships with local farmers to create a heritage seed bank, preserving varieties that had been grown in America since colonial times. Part of the foundation's mission became supporting sustainable farming practices that honored both environmental stewardship and historical continuity. The transformation of Green Valley became visible across the landscape. Construction began on the museum complex, designed to integrate seamlessly with the rural environment while meeting the technological requirements for preserving priceless artifacts. Solar panels and wind turbines would make the facility energy independent, demonstrating modern sustainability principles alongside historical preservation. Local businesses began adapting to accommodate increasing tourism. The Hardware family opened a heritage crafts workshop where visitors could learn blacksmithing and colonial-era woodworking. Maria Santos expanded her restaurant to feature recipes from Revolutionary War-era cookbooks. Every enhancement maintained the authentic character of the community while providing new economic opportunities. Sarah insisted that development respect the agricultural nature of the region. New construction had to meet strict design standards that preserved the rural character. Tourist accommodations were limited to bed and breakfasts in restored farmhouses, rather than large hotels that might overwhelm the community's infrastructure. But perhaps the most rewarding aspect of Sarah's efforts was the human impact. She established educational scholarships for local students pursuing careers in agriculture, history, or conservation. The foundation provided microloans to help small farmers transition to sustainable practices. Elderly farmers were hired as consultants, their decades of experience valued as a form of living history. Dr. Rodriguez often visited the construction site, amazed by how Sarah's vision was taking shape. "You've created something unprecedented," she told Sarah one afternoon as they watched workers installing environmental controls in what would become the Franklin Gallery. Museums typically focus on preserving the past. You're using the past to cultivate the future. The media attention never fully subsided, but it evolved. Initial coverage had focused on the treasure hunt aspects of the discovery. Now, journalists were documenting the innovative model Sarah had created for community development based on historical preservation. A documentary crew from the National Geographic Channel spent 6 months filming the museum's development. Their resulting program, titled Seeds of History, would eventually win 3 Emmy Awards for its portrayal of how agricultural heritage connects to national identity. But success brought unexpected challenges. Developers offered increasingly enormous sums for portions of the Chen property. Some community members worried that too much change might destroy what made Green Valley special. Sarah found herself balancing between honoring her vision and responding to legitimate concerns about rapid transformation. She addressed these worries during a packed town hall meeting 6 months after the discovery. Standing before neighbors she'd known her entire life, Sarah spoke with the same authenticity that had earned her reputation as a conscientious farmer. "Change is scary," she acknowledged. "I understand the concerns about preserving our way of life, but consider this. For generations, our community has struggled economically. Young people leave because there aren't opportunities here. The Revolutionary War artifacts didn't just give us money. They gave us a chance to show the world what rural America offers." She gestured toward the museum construction visible through the community center windows. "We're not trying to become something we're not. We're amplifying what we've always been, a community that values hard work, historical awareness, and caring for the land." The response was overwhelmingly positive. Residents shared their own ideas for heritage tourism, educational programs, and agricultural innovation. Sarah realized she wasn't just implementing her vision anymore. The entire community was collaborating to create something unprecedented. As autumn arrived, bringing the 1-year anniversary of the discovery, Sarah often walked the fields where she'd first uncovered the metal box. The museum's first phase would open in spring, showcasing the Revolutionary War documents alongside exhibits about immigrant contributions to American agriculture. Dr. Morrison joined her on one such walk, marveling at how the landscape had been transformed without losing its essential character. "You know, Sarah, what impresses me most isn't the money or the museum. It's how you've maintained your core identity throughout this entire experience." She smiled, stopping at the exact spot where her tractor had caught on the buried box. A small granite marker now commemorated the location, though most days it was surrounded by the same crops her grandmother had planted decades earlier. "My grandmother used to say that land holds memory," Sarah reflected. "She meant that every generation leaves something for the next to discover. I just never imagined it would be quite so literal." As they walked back toward the farmhouse, now bustling with evening activity as work shifts changed at the museum construction site, Sarah felt a deep sense of completion. The discovery had brought wealth beyond imagination, but more importantly, it had provided purpose beyond her individual circumstances. The simple woman farmer who had worried about losing her family's land had become an agent of historical preservation and community transformation. Her story had inspired other rural communities to examine their own heritage, leading to similar discoveries across the nation. Agricultural colleges were developing new curricula based on the Green Valley model, integrating historical awareness with sustainable farming practices. That evening, as Sarah reviewed architectural plans for the museum's second phase, she received a call from Dr. Rodriguez. "Sarah, we've just received notification from UNESCO. They're considering Green Valley as a World Heritage Site, recognizing it as a place where agricultural heritage and historical preservation create unique cultural value." Another milestone in an extraordinary journey that had begun with a tractor catching on something buried in the earth. Sarah Chen had proven that extraordinary discoveries often come to those who are simply faithful to their daily responsibilities, ready to recognize significance when it emerges from the ordinary rhythms of life. The discovery that would shake the foundation of everything Sarah had built came not from government agencies or museums, but from an unexpected source. Thomas Blackwood, an antiquities dealer from Boston who arrived in Green Valley during the autumn harvest season. Blackwood's appearance was unremarkable, a thin man in his 60s with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, but his credentials were impressive. He held advanced degrees in American colonial history and had worked with several prestigious auction houses. Most importantly, he claimed to represent a consortium of private collectors interested in historical accuracy. Dr. Rodriguez was immediately suspicious when Blackwood requested a private meeting with Sarah. Dealers like him often emerge when significant discoveries become public, she warned. They usually have ulterior motives beyond scholarly interest. But Sarah agreed to meet with him, curious about what perspective he might offer. They met at Maria Santos's restaurant, now expanded with period-appropriate decor that attracted visitors interested in Revolutionary War history. "Miss Chen," Blackwood began after ordering coffee, "I must commend you on your remarkable discovery and your generous decision to share it with the American people." His tone was carefully respectful, but Sarah detected something calculating beneath the politeness. "However," he continued, "I believe there are aspects of your find that require urgent attention, specifically questions about the legal ownership of artifacts discovered on private property." Sarah felt a chill despite the restaurant's warmth. "The government has already confirmed that the reward program covers any ownership questions. Everything has been handled legally." Blackwood smiled thinly. But that assumes the artifacts were legally present on your property to begin with. My research suggests these items were stolen during the Revolutionary War period itself." He produced a leather portfolio containing photocopies of historical documents. "According to records I've uncovered in European archives, Benjamin Franklin's correspondence was taken from a diplomatic courier who was robbed outside Philadelphia in 1781. The theft was never officially reported because it would have revealed sensitive diplomatic negotiations." Sarah's heart raced as Blackwood explained his theory. According to his research, the metal box had been taken by a rogue Continental soldier who planned to sell the documents to British agents. Instead, he had fled west, possibly dying before completing the transaction. "What are you suggesting?" Sarah asked carefully. "Simply that the current authentication process may be incomplete. I represent clients who possess related documents, letters, that reference the missing correspondence. Together, these collections would provide unprecedented insight into Revolutionary War politics." Blackwood placed a business card on the table. "My clients are prepared to offer $75 million for your artifacts, assuming they can be reunited with their collection. No government bureaucracy, no questions about disputed ownership." Sarah stared at the card, her mind racing. The offer was substantially more than the government reward, but something felt fundamentally wrong about the entire conversation. After Blackwood departed, Sarah immediately called Dr. Rodriguez and Agent Thompson. Their investigation of Blackwood's claims consumed the next 2 weeks, creating tension that permeated the entire project. Museum construction slowed as legal. Experts examined ownership questions. Educational programs were suspended pending resolution of the dispute. The investigation revealed disturbing facts about Blackwood's consortium. Several of his clients had been investigated by international agencies for trafficking in illegal antiquities. The European documents he'd referenced existed, but their authenticity was questionable. Most critically, there was no evidence supporting his theft theory beyond circumstantial speculation. Dr. Rodriguez called Sarah with the results. Blackwood is essentially running a sophisticated scam. He identifies valuable discoveries, creates doubt about their ownership, then offers to resolve the complications through private purchase. The FBI has opened a federal investigation. But the damage was already significant. News of the ownership dispute had spread, creating doubt about the entire project. Some foundation donors withdrew their support, concerned about potential legal complications. Local opposition emerged, with some residents arguing that Sarah should accept Blackwood's offer and avoid the controversy entirely. Sarah found herself at the center of a storm she hadn't anticipated. The simple joy of sharing historical treasures with her community had transformed into a complex legal battle with national implications. She spent sleepless nights wondering if her decision to authenticate the documents publicly had been a mistake. The situation reached a crisis point during a heated county commission meeting. Blackwood had hired a local attorney who argued that the ownership questions required immediate investigation. Several commission members, influenced by concerns about potential lawsuits, suggested suspending all museum development until the matter was resolved. Sarah requested permission to address the commission. Standing before a packed room that included many of her neighbors, she spoke with a conviction that surprised even herself. "I found these artifacts while working land my family has owned. For 70 years, she began. Every legitimate authority, the FBI, the Smithsonian, the Treasury Department, has confirmed that I acted properly in reporting the discovery and working with federal agencies." She gestured toward Blackwood, who sat in the front row with his attorney. Mr. Blackwood offers no credible evidence for his claims. Instead, he offers private collectors the opportunity to purchase American heritage artifacts that belong in American institutions, accessible to American citizens. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "This isn't about money. It never was. This is about preserving history for future generations, about demonstrating that ordinary Americans can be trusted with extraordinary discoveries." The room erupted in applause. Neighbor after neighbor stood to express support for Sarah and the museum project. Maria Santos spoke about the positive changes in the community. Dr. Morrison defended the scholarly value of public access to the documents. Even some initial skeptics argued that Blackwood's intervention seemed suspiciously timed and motivated. The commission voted unanimously to continue supporting the project pending the FBI investigation's completion. Blackwood's attorney made subtle threats about legal action, but their lack of concrete evidence was becoming increasingly apparent. 2 weeks later, the FBI arrested Blackwood and 3 associates on federal charges related to interstate trafficking in fraudulent antiquities. The investigation revealed that they had attempted similar schemes at multiple historical sites across the nation. Blackwood's European archives were forgeries, and his consortium included several individuals with criminal records for art fraud. Dr. Rodriguez delivered the news personally, finding Sarah in her greenhouse where she'd taken refuge from the media attention. "It's over, Sarah. The charges are serious enough that Blackwood won't be bothering anyone for a very long time." But the experience had left its mark. Sarah realized that her discovery had attracted not just academic interest and government support, but also predators seeking to profit from American heritage. The incident had taught her valuable lessons about the responsibilities that came with her newfound position. She used the experience as motivation for stronger security protocols at the museum. More importantly, it reinforced her commitment to transparency and public access. Sarah established a policy that all documentation related to the artifacts would be publicly available, preventing future attempts to create doubt through secret information. The museum opened the following spring with unprecedented fanfare. The Secretary of Cultural Affairs attended, along with representatives from every major historical institution in the nation. But for Sarah, the most meaningful moment came when she watched local school children interact with the Revolutionary War documents for the first time. 8-year-old Emma Martinez pressed her nose against the protective glass housing Franklin's correspondence. "Miss Chen," she asked, "how did you know this was important when you found it?" Sarah knelt beside Emma, remembering her own childhood questions about history and mystery. "I didn't know at first," she admitted. "I just knew something that felt special, deserved careful attention." The child nodded seriously. "My grandma says you saved our farmlands by finding this treasure." It was true in ways Sarah hadn't fully anticipated. The museum had attracted sustainable tourism that supported local businesses without overwhelming them. Educational programs brought students from across the Midwest, many of whom were inspired to pursue careers in agriculture or history. The Heritage Seed Bank had become a model for preserving America's agricultural diversity, but perhaps the most significant impact was on Sarah herself. The farmhouse that had been her refuge for years now regularly hosted scholars, dignitaries, and educators. She had developed expertise in museum administration, non-profit management, and cultural preservation. Yet she still spent every morning tending to her original crops, maintaining the connection to the land that had made everything possible. A year after the museum's opening, Sarah received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Helen Chang, a colleague of Dr. Rodriguez from the Smithsonian, arrived with intriguing news. "Sarah, we've been analyzing some of the ink samples from your documents. Using new spectrographic techniques," Dr. Chang explained. "We've discovered something extraordinary hidden beneath the visible text." They walked to the museum's conservation laboratory, where advanced imaging equipment had revealed previously invisible writing. Using ultraviolet light and chemical analysis, researchers had uncovered what appeared to be a secret message written in invisible ink beneath Franklin's diplomatic correspondence. "The hidden text appears to be coordinates," Dr. Chang revealed, showing Sarah computer-enhanced images. "We believe Franklin was providing the location of additional hidden caches, possibly containing gold or other documents crucial to the Revolutionary War effort." Sarah stared at the revealed coordinates, her mind immediately identifying their significance. The location described was on her property, specifically in the oldest section of the farm near the original homestead site. The implications were staggering. If Franklin had hidden additional items on what would become the Chen family property, it suggested a level of strategic planning that historians had never imagined. The location would have been remote during the Revolutionary War period, making it an ideal hiding place for valuable materials. Dr. Chang continued, "We need your permission to conduct a careful archaeological investigation. This could be the discovery that definitively establishes your property as one of the most historically significant sites in American Revolutionary War history." Sarah gave permission immediately, but insisted on protocols that would protect both the historical integrity of any discoveries and the ongoing agricultural use of her land. The investigation would be conducted during winter months when fields were fallow, and any excavation would be carefully restored afterward. The winter archaeological expedition attracted international attention. Ground-penetrating radar identified several anomalies consistent with deliberately buried objects. When the team carefully excavated the first location, they discovered another metal container, this one containing gold coins bearing the dates 1778-1780. But the second container held even greater treasures: detailed maps showing safe houses and supply routes throughout the American colonies, annotated in Washington's own handwriting. These documents revealed the extensive intelligence network that had been crucial to American victory, information that had been previously lost to history. Each discovery built upon the previous ones, creating a comprehensive picture of revolutionary war operations that exceeded anything historians had imagined. Sarah found herself at the center of multiple museum exhibitions, documentary films, and academic conferences. Yet she remained remarkably grounded, still living in the same farmhouse, and maintaining the same core values that had guided her initial decisions. The financial impact was significant but carefully managed. Sarah's foundation expanded its programs to support agricultural research, historical preservation, and education across multiple states. She established endowments at several universities to fund research into heritage farming practices and their historical connections. More importantly, she became a symbol of responsible stewardship of cultural heritage. When other significant discoveries were made on private property, Sarah was often consulted about best practices for balancing public interest with individual rights. The story that had begun with a simple farmer finding a metal box while plowing had evolved into a model for how historical discoveries could transform communities while preserving their essential character. Sarah had proven that ordinary individuals, given extraordinary opportunities, could create lasting positive change through principled decisions and sustained commitment to the greater good. As she stood in the museum one evening, watching visitors from around the world study documents that had shaped their nation's founding, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The scared farmer, worried about losing her family's land, had become a steward of American heritage. But more importantly, she had discovered that true treasure lay not in what you found, but in what you chose to do with it. 5 years had passed since Sarah Chen's extraordinary discovery transformed Green Valley into one of America's most significant historical sites. The Museum of American Agricultural Heritage had become a pilgrimage destination for history enthusiasts, educators, and families seeking to understand their nation's founding through the lens of agricultural heritage. But Sarah's greatest achievement hadn't been the artifacts or the museum. It was the revolution she had sparked in how America viewed its rural heritage and the vital connection between agriculture and democracy. On a crisp October morning, Sarah stood before the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization Assembly in Paris. As Green Valley prepared to receive designation as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, she was invited to address delegates from 195 countries about sustainable heritage preservation. "Distinguished delegates," Sarah began, her voice carrying the same quiet confidence that had enabled her to navigate years of challenges and triumphs. 5 years ago, I was a struggling farmer facing foreclosure. Today, I stand before you not just as the discoverer of remarkable artifacts, but as a representative of what happens when a community chooses collaboration over competition, legacy over profit. The speech that followed chronicled Green Valley's transformation into what UNESCO had termed a living laboratory of cultural sustainability. Sarah described how the museum operated as more than a repository of historical objects. It served as a catalyst for regenerative agriculture, experiential education, and community empowerment. "We learned that preserving history means cultivating the future," she explained to the rapt audience. "Our heritage seed bank now protects agricultural varieties that were growing when Franklin and Washington corresponded. Our educational programs teach sustainable farming techniques while connecting students to the democratic principles fought for during the Revolution." Dr. Rodriguez, now serving as the museum's permanent director, watched from the audience. With pride, the institution had exceeded every expectation, attracting over 500,000 visitors annually while maintaining its commitment to educational excellence and agricultural innovation. The UNESCO designation ceremony marked a new chapter for Green Valley. International partnerships emerged with agricultural communities worldwide. Exchange programs brought farmers from 5 continents to learn sustainable techniques while experiencing American Revolutionary history firsthand. But Sarah's influence extended far beyond Green Valley's borders. The Chen model of heritage preservation had inspired similar projects across the United States. Rural communities with historical significance, but limited resources, began adopting her approach of combining cultural preservation with economic development. In Ohio, the Williamson family discovered Civil War documents in their barn and created an agricultural education center focused on food security during wartime. Pennsylvania farmers uncovered Underground Railroad artifacts and established a heritage trail connecting sustainable farming with social justice history. Each project followed Sarah's principles: community involvement, educational focus, and commitment to preserving both historical integrity and agricultural viability. The financial success had been remarkable, but was secondary to the cultural impact. Sarah's foundation, now managing over $200 million in assets, had funded over 60 heritage preservation projects across North America. The foundation's motto, "Cultivating History, Growing Future," reflected Sarah's belief that the past should nourish rather than constrain future generations. During a foundation board meeting in Green Valley, members discussed their most ambitious project yet, the International Center for Agricultural Heritage, designed to document and preserve farming practices that had shaped human civilization. Representatives from ancient farming communities in China, Peru, Egypt, and Italy had committed to sharing knowledge about techniques developed over millennia. "Sarah, you've created something unprecedented," noted Dr. James Morrison, now the Foundation's academic director. "You've proven that historical preservation and agricultural innovation aren't just compatible, they're synergistic." The center would establish research stations in 12 countries, each focusing on different aspects of agricultural heritage. Traditional techniques would be studied using modern scientific methods, creating bridges between ancient wisdom and contemporary challenges like climate change and soil degradation. But perhaps the most meaningful development was the Global Young Farmers Heritage Program, inspired by Sarah's encounter with young Emma Martinez years earlier. The program brought teenagers from around the world to Green Valley for intensive summer experiences combining historical research with hands-on farming. Chen Liu, a 16-year-old from China whose family had preserved traditional rice cultivation methods for generations, spent a summer learning about maize varieties that had sustained George Washington's troops. His perspective essay, published in National Geographic, described how discovering American agricultural history had deepened his appreciation for his own family's heritage. "Ms. Chen showed us that every farm holds stories," he wrote. "Every crop connects us to people who made difficult choices to feed their communities. This isn't just about growing food, it's about growing understanding." The global perspective enriched Sarah's own understanding. Through hosting international visitors, she learned about preservation challenges facing agricultural communities. Worldwide, this exposure inspired the Foundation's International Preservation Fellows Program, providing grants and technical assistance to farmers protecting heritage varieties and traditional practices. Maria Gonzalez, a quinoa farmer from Peru, whose family had cultivated ancient varieties for 800 years, received support to document traditional techniques threatened by industrial agriculture. Kofi Asante from Ghana used foundation resources to establish a heritage yam bank, preserving dozens of varieties crucial to food security in West Africa. These connections created a global network of heritage farmers who shared knowledge about preservation, propagation, and sustainable cultivation. Annual conferences rotated between member farms, creating opportunities for cross-cultural learning and collaboration. The success attracted attention from world leaders. President Chen Shaoli of China visited Green Valley to sign an agricultural heritage cooperation agreement. Prime Minister Sarah Johnson of the United Kingdom announced plans to adapt the Chen model for preserving British heritage agriculture. The European Union commissioned a comprehensive study of how similar programs could strengthen rural economies across member nations. But Sarah remained most energized by local impact. Walking through Green Valley's streets, she could see the transformation in every detail. Former vacant storefronts now housed artisanal workshops where visitors learned traditional crafts. The high school offered specialized tracks in heritage agriculture and cultural preservation, keeping young people in the community while providing world-class education. The Chen family farm itself had become a demonstration site where visitors could observe sustainable practices that honored both historical methods and modern science. Solar panels shaped like corn leaves generated renewable energy, while heritage varieties grew alongside experimental crops designed to address climate challenges. Dr. Elena Rodriguez approached Sarah in the museum's conservation laboratory, where new technologies continued revealing secrets from the original documents. "Sarah, we've made another discovery I think you need to see." Using quantum imaging technology, researchers had uncovered previously undetected writing in the margins of Washington's tactical notes. The hidden text referenced other caches, but these coordinates pointed to locations across the 13 original colonies. Washington appears to have created a network of hidden repositories throughout America. Dr. Rodriguez explained, "If these locations exist, we're looking at the most extensive preservation effort in American history, a founding father's attempt to ensure future generations could access comprehensive documentation of the revolution." The implications were staggering. Sarah immediately organized an expedition team, including archaeologists, historians, and representatives from each state where coordinates had been identified. The National Preservation Foundation provided funding, while state governments offered full cooperation. The first expedition to Virginia uncovered a stone repository containing maps of British troop movements that had never been documented in official histories. The second location in Massachusetts yielded personal letters from colonial soldiers that provided unprecedented insight into the war's emotional toll. But the discovery in South Carolina revolutionized everything. Beneath a centuries-old oak tree, the team found a metalwork box containing what appeared to be early plans for the Constitution, annotated with notes from multiple founding fathers. These documents suggested collaborative preparation for the Constitutional Convention that began years before the official proceedings. "Sarah, this changes everything we thought we knew about America's founding," Dr. Rodriguez announced during a press conference at the Smithsonian. "These documents prove that our democratic institutions were more deliberately planned than we ever imagined." The discoveries created a sensation unlike anything seen since the original find in Green Valley. International media descended upon Each excavation site, historians debated implications in packed auditoriums. The Smithsonian announced the largest exhibition in its history, featuring artifacts from what they termed Washington's Great Preservation Project. But Sarah approached these developments with the same principles that had guided her from the beginning. Working with state officials and local communities, she ensured that each discovery site received proper protection and interpretation. Local museums were enhanced rather than overshadowed. Educational programs emphasized community involvement rather than tourism spectacle. The National Founding Documents Trail emerged from these discoveries, connecting sites across the 13 original colonies with authentic artifacts and immersive experiences. Each location maintained unique character while contributing to a broader narrative about American democracy's origins. Sarah's role evolved from discoverer to coordinator of the most ambitious historical preservation project in American history. She worked with Congress to establish the National Heritage Preservation Office, ensuring sustainable funding and professional oversight for ongoing discoveries. Throughout these demanding years, Sarah maintained her connection to farming. Every morning began in her greenhouse, tending to seedlings that would become part of the Heritage Seed Bank. This ritual grounded her, providing perspective amid increasingly complex responsibilities. The personal cost had been significant. Sarah's marriage to Dr. David Kim, a sustainable agriculture researcher she'd met during the museum's development, was celebrated quietly in the same fields where she'd made her discovery. Their twin daughters, Elena and Maria, named for the historical figures whose correspondence had started everything, grew up surrounded by both historical significance and agricultural authenticity. As the 10th anniversary of the discovery approached, Green Valley prepared for a celebration that would attract world leaders, historians, and agricultural experts from every continent. The museum had expanded into a complex, including research, facilities, educational centers, and collaborative workspaces for international scholars. Sarah stood in the same field where she'd first uncovered the metal box, now marked by a memorial garden containing plants from every state where Washington's repositories had been found. The spot had become a place of reflection for visitors contemplating the connections between past and future. Dr. Morrison joined her for their annual anniversary walk, marveling at how dramatically the landscape had evolved while maintaining its essential agricultural character. Sarah, you've achieved something unprecedented. You've shown the world that historical preservation and community development aren't just compatible, they're essential for each other. She smiled, thinking of all the people whose lives had been touched by their work. The international students who'd discovered passions for sustainable agriculture. The communities worldwide that had been inspired to preserve their own agricultural heritage. The scholars whose understanding of American history had been revolutionized by new discoveries. The real treasure was never the artifacts themselves, Sarah reflected. It was discovering what happened when you gave people reason to believe their heritage mattered, when you showed them that preservation and progress could work together. As the sun set over fields that now fed both body and soul, producing crops that sustained the community while connecting visitors to their shared human story, Sarah embodied a truth that resonated far beyond Green Valley, that extraordinary discoveries often come to ordinary people who approach their daily responsibilities with integrity, who recognize significance when it emerges from routine, and who understand that the greatest treasures are those shared with others. The simple woman farmer who had worried about losing her family's land had become a global symbol of how individual conscience and community commitment could create change extending across generations. Her legacy wasn't just the preservation of artifacts, but the demonstration that when heritage meets innovation, when local wisdom connects with global vision, the result can transform how humanity understands both its past and its potential. As stars emerged in the Missouri sky, Sarah Chen had proven that the most profound discoveries happen not when we seek treasure, but when we're faithful to our responsibilities and ready to recognize the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary. Rhythms of daily life. The morning of March 15th, 15 years after the discovery, brought unexpected visitors to Green Valley. Sarah was conducting her routine greenhouse inspection when Dr. Rodriguez arrived with a delegation that included the newly appointed Secretary of International Heritage, a representative from the Vatican Archives, and Dr. Amara Okafor, a leading expert in ancient African civilizations. Sarah, we need to discuss something that could reshape everything we understand about pre-Columbian contact between civilizations, Dr. Rodriguez announced with barely contained excitement. They gathered in the museum's secure briefing room, where Dr. Okafor presented findings that defied conventional historical understanding. Using advanced quantum archaeology techniques on samples from the original Franklin documents, researchers had discovered microscopic fibers that shouldn't have existed in 18th century America. These fibers are consistent with textile production, methods used in ancient Mali, Dr. Okafor explained, displaying electron microscope images. The technique for creating this specific weave pattern was lost by 1400 CE, yet we're finding it embedded in documents from 1781. The implications staggered everyone present. If authentic, this suggested contact between West African civilizations and the American colonies centuries before the documented slave trade. Sarah listened intently as Dr. Okafor outlined the revolutionary possibilities. We believe Franklin may have encountered African scholars who possessed knowledge about the Americas that predated European arrival. These documents might contain evidence of advanced mathematical, astronomical, and agricultural practices that could transform our understanding of African contributions to American development. The Secretary of International Heritage leaned forward. Sarah, this discovery requires unprecedented international cooperation. We're proposing the creation of the Global Pre-Columbian Research Initiative, centered here in Green Valley, but extending to sites in Mali, Egypt, Peru, and coastal Brazil. Sarah felt the familiar surge of responsibility that had become her constant companion. Each discovery seemed to expand the implications of her original find, creating ripples that reached further into human history than anyone had imagined possible. Over the following months, Green Valley became the coordination center for the most ambitious archaeological investigation ever undertaken. Teams established research stations on 3 continents, connected by quantum communication technology that allowed real-time collaboration across time zones. The breakthrough came during the winter solstice, when astronomical analysis revealed that the coordinates hidden in Franklin's documents aligned with ancient African star maps. Dr. Okafor's team in Mali discovered stone tablets containing mathematical formulas that perfectly match calculations found in Washington's coded correspondence. Sarah stood in the reconstructed observatory built based on these ancient plans, watching international teams of scholars work together to piece together millennia of hidden connections. The facility combined cutting-edge technology with traditional knowledge from indigenous scholars representing cultures worldwide. Sarah, you've created more than a museum, observed Princess Nkemokoro of Nigeria, visiting to discuss cultural repatriation protocols. You've demonstrated that preserving one's story inevitably leads to discovering countless others. The Global Pre-Columbian Initiative began yielding discoveries that revolutionized multiple fields. Agricultural techniques documented in the coded correspondence matched methods still used by indigenous farmers in the Amazon. Mathematical principles hidden in the documents reflected knowledge that had supposedly been lost for centuries. But the most profound discovery emerged when teams analyzed pottery fragments found near the original metal box location. Chemical analysis revealed that the clay contained minerals specific to regions in ancient Ghana, suggesting that the original container had been created using African materials in America. Dr. Maria Santos, now serving as the initiative's Cultural Integration Director, coordinated efforts to ensure that discoveries respected and included perspectives from all affected communities. Indigenous representatives from 4 continents participated in interpreting findings, recognizing that their oral traditions contained knowledge that complemented the archaeological evidence. The strength of our project lies in recognizing that history belongs to all humanity, Dr. Santos explained during a global video conference. Sarah's original discovery opened a door, but what we've found behind it requires the collected wisdom of every culture involved. Sarah established the intercultural knowledge exchange, providing resources for traditional knowledge holders to work alongside academic researchers. The program brought together griots from West Africa, oral historians from Native American tribes, scholars from Chinese agricultural traditions, and experts in traditional Pacific navigation techniques. Elena Chen, now 12 and already fluent in 3 languages, spent her summer interviewing elderly farmers about traditional practices. Her documentation project, supported by the Foundation, created an audio-visual archive preserving agricultural wisdom from practitioners worldwide. "My mum always says that farming is about remembering and imagining," Elena explained to visiting students. "You remember what worked before, and you imagine what might work better." This philosophy guided the development of the Regenerative Heritage Farms Initiative. Working with communities in 22 countries, Sarah's foundation supported projects that applied ancient agricultural wisdom to contemporary challenges. In Bangladesh, farmers used irrigation techniques described in the Washington documents to combat rising sea levels. Ethiopian communities adapted crop rotation methods found in Franklin's notes to address climate-related droughts. Each project demonstrated how historical knowledge could address present challenges. The success attracted attention from technology companies seeking to support heritage preservation through innovation. Apple funded development of the Historical Reality platform, allowing users worldwide to experience virtual archaeological digs and interact with historical figures using AI based on documented writings. Microsoft partnered with the initiative to create the Quantum Heritage Database, using advanced computing to identify patterns across thousands of historical documents from multiple cultures. The system revealed previously unnoticed connections between civilizations, suggesting extensive global trade and knowledge exchange millennia before conventional timelines. But Sarah insisted that technology serve community needs rather than overshadowing them. She established protocols ensuring that digital innovations enhanced rather than replaced direct engagement with historical materials and cultural traditions. The International Heritage Youth Corps emerged from these principles. Young people from disadvantaged communities worldwide receive full scholarships to participate in heritage preservation projects while developing technical skills. Participants learned digital archaeology, sustainable agriculture, and cross-cultural communication, while contributing to active research. Jamal Washington, an 18-year-old from Detroit whose ancestors had been enslaved, spent 6 months in Mali learning traditional metallurgy techniques that connected to his family history. His research project documented how African metalworking influenced American colonial industrial development. "Finding your history changes everything," Jamal reflected during his presentation to the United Nations Youth Council. "Ms. Chen showed us that preserving the past creates power for the future." These personal transformations multiplied across the global network. The initiative had directly impacted over 50,000 young people, creating a generation of heritage, preservationists, sustainable agriculture advocates, and cultural bridge builders. Sarah's influence extended beyond education to policy. Working with international organizations, she helped establish the Global Heritage Protection Protocols, creating legal frameworks for protecting cultural sites while supporting local communities. The protocols revolutionized how archaeological discoveries were managed. Instead of removing artifacts to distant museums, new policies emphasized in situ preservation and community-centered interpretation. Local populations received training and resources to become guardians of their heritage, while benefiting economically from sustainable tourism. This approach proved especially impactful in post-conflict regions. In Cambodia, former child soldiers received training in heritage preservation, finding purpose in protecting Angkor Wat while developing marketable skills. Similar programs in Afghanistan and Iraq employed displaced populations in documenting and preserving cultural sites threatened by conflict. As the discovery's 20th anniversary approached, Sarah reflected on the exponential growth of impact. What had begun with a simple farmer finding a metal box had evolved into a global movement, demonstrating how cultural preservation could drive sustainable development. The anniversary celebration planned for Green Valley would host representatives from over 100 nations. The agenda included signing the International Charter on Heritage-Based Sustainable Development, establishing binding commitments to protect cultural sites while supporting local communities. President Williams of the United States would present Sarah with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, recognizing her contributions to international understanding and heritage preservation. But Sarah requested that the ceremony include representatives from every community impacted by the initiative. No individual discovers heritage alone, she insisted. Everything we've achieved has been possible because people from every corner of the earth shared their knowledge and wisdom. The medal ceremony took place in the museum's Franklin Garden, where plants from every nation participating in the initiative grew together in carefully designed raised beds. Sarah spoke briefly, her words broadcast to millions worldwide. 20 years ago, I thought I was simply plowing a field, she began. What I discovered was that our shared human story is far more connected, more ancient, and more beautiful than we had imagined. Every culture has preserved pieces of this story. When we share them, we discover who we really are. The audience included former skeptics who had become champions of the initiative. Thomas Blackwood, Jr., son of the antiquities dealer who had tried to challenge ownership of the original artifacts, now directed the Foundation's Legal Heritage Protection Program. His work focused on preventing cultural trafficking while supporting legitimate preservation efforts. Sarah showed us that heritage belongs to all humanity, he acknowledged during the ceremony. My father's mistakes taught me the difference between possessing history and stewarding it. The celebration continued for 3 days, featuring demonstrations of traditional practices from cultures worldwide. Visitors could observe Incan textile techniques, participate in West African drumming circles, learn Chinese calligraphy, and practice permaculture methods from Australian indigenous traditions. But the most moving moment came during the youth presentations. Young people from the Heritage Corps shared projects demonstrating how historical knowledge addressed contemporary challenges. Their innovations ranged from water management systems based on ancient Persian qanats to urban farming techniques inspired by Aztec chinampas. Maria Chen Kim, Sarah's other daughter, now 15 and passionate about ethnobotany, presented research on how indigenous plant medicines mentioned in the Franklin correspondence connected to modern medical developments. Her work had identified compounds with potential applications for treating antibiotic-resistant infections. History isn't just about what happened, Maria explained to the assembly. It's about what's possible when we remember what people before and learned. As the anniversary celebration concluded, Sarah announced the initiative's next phase, the Quantum Heritage Project, using advanced quantum computing to analyze cultural artifacts at the molecular level. The technology promised to reveal connections between civilizations that conventional archaeology couldn't detect. Partnerships with leading technological institutes would establish quantum heritage centers on every continent. Each facility would serve as a hub for collaborative research while training local researchers in advanced techniques. We're not just preserving the past, Sarah explained during the project launch. We're developing tools that will help future generations discover connections we can't yet imagine. The project's first major success came within months. Quantum analysis of pottery fragments from 6 different continents revealed shared chemical signatures suggesting ancient global trade networks far more extensive than previously known. The discovery supported theories about advanced navigation and commercial relationships that had shaped human development for millennia. But beyond the scientific revelations, Sarah remained most proud of the human connections fostered by the initiative. Farmers in rural Kenya now communicated regularly with indigenous agriculturalists in Peru, sharing adaptation strategies for climate change. Urban gardeners in Detroit learned from traditional farmers in rural China. Former refugees became heritage documentation specialists in their adopted countries. These relationships created a global community bound not by geography or politics, but by shared commitment to preserving and applying humanity's collective wisdom. The network had grown to include over 500,000 active participants across 6 continents. Dr. Rodriguez, now in her 70s, reflected on the journey during a quiet moment in the museum's original gallery. When we first opened this box 20 years ago, we thought we were looking at the past. We had no idea we were glimpsing the future. Sarah nodded, watching a group of children from 12 different countries work together on a heritage garden project. They communicated in multiple languages, used traditional tools alongside modern technology, and demonstrated the seamless integration of cultural preservation with innovation that had become the initiative's hallmark. The most important discovery, Sarah reflected, wasn't what was in the box. It was learning that when you honor one culture's contribution to human knowledge, you discover connections to all cultures. As sunset approached over Green Valley, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, reminiscent of that first evening when Sarah had dreamed about her discovery's significance, she understood that the journey had no predetermined destination. Each revelation opened new questions, created fresh possibilities, and demonstrated that human potential remained as vast and unexplored as the universe itself. The simple farmer who had once worried about losing her family's land had become a catalyst for humanity's greatest collaborative effort to understand its own history. Her legacy lay not in the artifacts discovered, but in the principle she had persistently demonstrated, that when we approach our responsibilities with integrity, remain open to unexpected possibilities, and choose collaboration over competition, we discover that the greatest treasures are those we create together. Standing in fields that now connected communities worldwide, Sarah Chen embodied humanity's highest aspiration, the belief that our shared past, properly understood and honored, could illuminate pathways to a future where wisdom transcended boundaries, and knowledge served the common good of all people. 25 years after the fateful day when Sarah's plow caught on that mysterious metal box, Green Valley had evolved into something unprecedented, a thriving hub of cultural innovation where the lines between past and future had dissolved into a seamless continuum of human progress. The morning of November 15th brought news that would once again reshape everything humanity thought it knew about its own history. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now 78 but still sharp as the day she first examined Sarah's artifacts, rushed into the museum's quantum analysis laboratory with results that had left her stammering with excitement. "Sarah, we need to convene an emergency session of the International Heritage Council immediately. What we've discovered will require completely restructuring our understanding of human civilization." Sarah, now 57, and bearing the distinguished bearing of someone who had spent decades bridging ancient wisdom with modern innovation, looked up from her work with the Heritage Youth Corps. The latest group included teenagers from Antarctica, research stations, underwater archaeological teams from the Pacific, and young scholars from the newly established Lunar Heritage Preserve. "Dr. Rodriguez, your hands are shaking," Sarah observed with the gentle concern that had become her trademark. "What could possibly be more revolutionary than what we've already uncovered?" The quantum analysis team had been examining what they thought were simple copper alloy fragments found deep beneath the original discovery site. Advanced molecular archaeology revealed something that challenged the fundamental timeline of human technological development. The fragments contained evidence of controlled nuclear fusion, processed in a way that suggested this technology had existed on Earth nearly 3,000 years ago. "Sarah, these aren't random metal fragments," Dr. Rodriguez explained, her voice filled with awe and trepidation. "They're components of what appears to be an ancient energy generation system. The isotopic signatures indicate this technology was actively used, not just theoretically conceived." Within hours, the emergency council session connected representatives from every major research institution, government, and cultural organization on Earth, plus the growing communities on Mars and Europa. Sarah activated the holographic conference system from Green Valley's command center, watching as three-dimensional images of scholars and leaders materialized around the circular table. Dr. Kenji Yamamoto, director of the Tokyo Institute for Advanced Historical Sciences, spoke first. "If authentic, this discovery implies that human civilization has gone through cycles of technological advancement and collapse that we never suspected. The implications for how we understand progress, sustainability, and our future trajectory are staggering." Sarah listened as experts from various fields analyzed the implications. Climate scientists discussed how ancient fusion technology might explain mysterious energy patterns in ice core samples. Archaeologists re-examined sites worldwide for signs of advanced technology that had been misidentified as decorative objects. Anthropologists reconsidered oral traditions that described gods who harnessed stellar fire. But it was Dr. Amara Okafor, now leading the African Heritage Research Consortium, who made the connection that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The Dogon people of Mali have oral traditions describing nuclear processes in terms that precisely match what our quantum analysis has revealed. Their astronomical knowledge includes details about stellar fusion that they claim were taught by ancient visitors. The session continued for 12 hours as teams across the globe began reanalyzing artifacts through this new lens. Museums reopened previously dismissed objects for quantum archaeological examination. Underground repositories in Rome, hidden caches in Peru, and sealed chambers in Egypt were subjected to advanced analysis that began revealing a pattern of technological sophistication spanning continents and millennia. Sarah established the Emergency Historical Revision Protocol, mobilizing resources to investigate this new timeline while ensuring that discoveries remained accessible to global communities rather than becoming classified government secrets. She had learned from early experiences that transparency and inclusive participation were essential for beneficial outcomes. the foundation for global heritage advancement, which had grown into humanity's largest non-governmental heritage organization, with active projects on every continent and 2 off-world colonies, immediately allocated resources for what became known as the Civilizational Cycle Investigation. Michelle Chen, now 25, and holding doctorates in both quantum archaeology and ethnobotany, led the Youth Research Division. Her team of international young scholars approached the investigation with innovative methodologies that combined traditional cultural knowledge with cutting-edge scientific analysis. "We're not just uncovering the past," Maria explained during a public broadcast that reached over 2 billion viewers. "We're discovering that human potential has always been greater than we imagined. Every cycle of advancement that ended in collapse teaches us something crucial about sustainable development." The investigation's first major breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Elena Chen, Maria's twin sister, and now a renowned specialist in quantum communication, discovered that the ancient fusion technology contained sophisticated information storage systems. These quantum storage devices had preserved not just technical specifications, but complete cultural records. From civilizations that had mastered technologies, current humanity was only beginning to understand. Reading these quantum records required developing entirely new translation protocols. The Foundation brought together linguists, quantum physicists, cultural anthropologists, and traditional knowledge holders from cultures worldwide to decode information that spanned dozens of languages and writing systems, many previously unknown. The records revealed a pattern of human civilizational development that astounded researchers. Advanced societies had emerged approximately every 3,000 to 4,000 years, each building upon remnants of previous cycles while developing distinct approaches to technology, governance, and cultural expression. But most remarkably, each advanced civilization had deliberately created preservation systems designed to help future societies avoid their mistakes. The Franklin documents had been part of such a system, intended to ensure that democratic principles and scientific knowledge survived potential civilizational collapse. Sarah found herself at the center of humanity's most profound re-examination of its own nature and potential. The quiet farmer, who had once worried about losing her family's land, was now coordinating efforts to understand patterns of human development, spanning millennia. The personal impact remained as significant as the global implications. Sarah's daughters had grown into leaders of the investigation, carrying forward family traditions while pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. Elena directed the Quantum Cultural Communication Project, developing technologies that allowed direct interface with ancient information storage systems. Maria led the Sustainable Advancement Initiative, applying lessons from previous civilizational cycles to current challenges. Their work revealed that every advanced civilization had faced similar challenges: resource depletion, climate disruption, social inequality, and the difficulty of maintaining technological advancement while preserving cultural wisdom. The quantum records contain detailed accounts of how previous societies had addressed these challenges, including solutions that offered hope for current global problems. The ancient fusion technology, for instance, had been deliberately designed to be fail-safe and decentralized, preventing both weaponization and monopolization. The quantum records included complete blueprints, accompanied by cultural protocols, that ensured equitable access and responsible use. Sarah established the Global Technology Integration Council, bringing together scientists, ethicists, traditional leaders, and representatives from every major cultural group to develop frameworks for responsibly implementing ancient technologies. The goal wasn't to recreate past civilizations, but to learn from their experiences while charting new paths forward. The first practical application emerged within 2 years. Teams successfully constructed a small-scale fusion facility based on ancient designs, producing clean energy without radioactive waste or explosion risk. The technology was simultaneously deployed in communities across 6 continents, from remote villages in Nepal to urban centers in Brazil, demonstrating the egalitarian principles embedded in the original design. But the breakthrough that truly revolutionized human society came from the cultural preservation protocols discovered in the quantum records. These ancient civilizations had developed sophisticated methods for maintaining cultural diversity and traditional knowledge while embracing technological advancement. Sarah implemented the Global Cultural Renaissance program, supporting communities worldwide in revitalizing traditional practices while integrating beneficial technologies. The program resulted in unprecedented cultural flowering as societies rediscovered pride in their heritage while embracing innovation. In New Zealand, Maori communities combined ancient ecological knowledge with fusion-powered environmental restoration systems, healing lands damaged by industrial development. Australian Aboriginal groups used traditional navigation techniques, enhanced by quantum communication, to establish the world's most accurate climate monitoring network. Indigenous communities throughout the Americas collaborated to reconstruct pre-Columbian technologies described in the quantum records. Their work revealed that ancient American civilizations had developed sustainable urban planning, water management, and agricultural systems far more sophisticated than previously imagined. The program's success in preserving cultural diversity while promoting technological advancement demonstrated that progress didn't require abandoning traditional wisdom. Instead, the most sustainable advancement came from harmonizing innovation with time-tested cultural practices. Sarah's approach to managing these revelations became a model for global leadership. Rather than claiming ownership or seeking to control discoveries, she consistently facilitated collaboration, ensuring that benefits reached even the most marginalized communities. The Chen Foundation established cultural technology centers in every region, facilities where local communities could access advanced technologies while sharing traditional knowledge. These centers became vibrant hubs of innovation where ancient techniques combined with modern science to create solutions addressing local and global challenges. The International Alliance for Sustainable Advancement, formed under Sarah's guidance, created binding agreements ensuring that breakthrough technologies remained open source and accessible. No nation or corporation could monopolize knowledge that belonged to all humanity. This approach proved essential when teams discovered the most significant revelation yet. The quantum records contained detailed information about managing what they termed civilizational transitions, the periods when societies moved from one technological level to another. Previous civilizations had identified specific techniques for maintaining social cohesion, psychological well-being, and cultural continuity during rapid technological change. These techniques included community-based education systems, democratic decision-making protocols, and cultural practices that helped people find meaning and purpose regardless of technological capabilities. Sarah oversaw implementation of these protocols on a global scale, creating support systems that helped humanity navigate its current technological transition. Community councils were established in every region, empowering local populations to shape how new technologies were integrated into their societies. The results surpassed all expectations. Crime rates plummeted as communities found renewed purpose in cultural preservation and technological development. Mental health improved dramatically as people connected with meaningful traditions while contributing to innovative solutions. Educational systems flourished as students engaged with both ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science. But perhaps the most profound change occurred in humanity's relationship with the environment. The quantum records revealed that previous civilizations had developed what they called regenerative technologies, systems that enhanced rather than depleted natural resources. Sarah's team successfully implemented regenerative agricultural systems that increased food production while restoring soil health and biodiversity. Atmospheric processes based on ancient designs began reversing pollution damage in major cities. Ocean restoration projects using rediscovered biotechnology showed rapid success in healing marine ecosystems. As humanity entered what historians would later term the fifth civilizational cycle, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. The metal box that had caught on her plow had been the first thread in unraveling humanity's true history, revealing that current civilization was part of a much larger pattern of human development. Standing in the museum's Quantum Heritage Hall, where visitors could now directly interface with information from previous civilizations, Sarah watched children from dozens of cultures learning together. They used ancient techniques to grow heritage, crops while operating fusion-powered equipment, embodying the seamless integration of past and future that had become humanity's new normal. Dr. Rodriguez, despite her age, remained actively involved in research. She approached Sarah with her latest discovery, quantum signatures suggesting that at least one previous civilization had successfully transcended the boom-bust cycle, establishing sustainable advancement that had lasted for millennia before, choosing to deliberately transition to what they called mature harmony. Sarah, Dr. Rodriguez said, excitement evident despite her exhaustion, we may be approaching the same choice they faced. The question isn't whether we can continue advancing, but whether we're ready to embrace a form of progress that prioritizes wisdom over mere technological capability. Sarah nodded, understanding the profound responsibility this discovery represented. Humanity now possessed tools and knowledge that could solve every major challenge facing the planet. The remaining questions were whether people could maintain the wisdom to use these capabilities responsibly, and whether they could preserve the cultural diversity that gave life meaning beyond mere survival. The emergency session that had begun, with shocking revelations about ancient fusion technology, had evolved into the foundation for humanity's next evolutionary step. Sarah had guided the world through the most significant transitional period in recorded history, demonstrating that progress achieved through collaboration and respect for cultural wisdom created far more sustainable advances than conquest or competition. As she prepared for the next phase of global transformation, Sarah embodied the principle that had guided her throughout this extraordinary journey, that when faced with unexpected discoveries about human potential, the wisest response was neither to reject new possibilities nor to abandon traditional wisdom, but to weave them together into something greater than either could achieve alone. The simple woman farmer, who had once plowed fields in rural Missouri, had become the architect of humanity's most successful civilizational transition, proving that when ordinary people approach extraordinary circumstances with integrity, courage, and commitment to the common good, they can shepherd entire species toward their highest potential. Standing beneath the stars that ancient civilizations had reached for, Sarah Chen knew that the greatest discoveries still lay ahead, waiting for humanity to prove itself ready for the responsibilities that came with truly mature advancement. The metal box had been just the beginning of a story that would continue as long as human beings remained curious about their past and committed to creating a better future. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.